A big man in a gray suit walked up to a microphone in my old high school gym. 400 people went quiet. "I've been carrying a name in my head for 19 years, he said. "I never wrote it down anywhere. Tonight I'd like to say it out loud." My stepmother sat 2 tables away. She folded her hands. She smiled because she thought she knew how this ended. So did I. She'd spent the better part of 20 years telling this town that I quit when it got hard. To understand it, I have to go back. My name's Corinne Tate. I'm 46. I served 9 years in the Army, and I've turned wrenches every day since. My shop sits on the south end of Ridgely, Alabama. 2 bays, 1 lift, my daddy's name still up on the sign. Brake jobs, alternators, the odd transmission that isn't worth saving. Most days I'm the only one in it. That suits me. My daddy opened those bays the year before I was born. He ran them until his hands finally quit on him. He taught me to time an engine by ear. He did that before he ever taught me to drive. Everything I know how to do, I learned on a milk crate beside him. The sign out front still says Tate and Son. He ordered it that way before he knew what he was getting. He never once talked about having it repainted. Neither did I, and he's been gone 15 years now. It's the only lie in this county I ever felt fine about. People in this town think they know my story. They think I signed up at 19, got a look at the real thing, and came running home. They're wrong. I let them be wrong anyway. Why would a grown woman let that stand for 19 years? I've got an answer. It just isn't a good one. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't special. I turned wrenches, and I never did one thing worth telling anybody. That's the line I handed people when they got curious. It shut the conversation down, which was the whole point of it. The woman who built the other version was Reva Tate. She married my father when I was 15. She buried him when I was 31. In between, she learned every phone number in this county. Reva never called me a liar. She wouldn't. She just told folks what she'd decided must have happened. She told it kindly. Kind is how a story gets legs. "Corinne's had a hard time of it," she'd say at the church supper. "Some people just aren't built for that life." Heads nodded. Nobody asked me. That was the arrangement. She talked, I didn't. A story like that doesn't need anybody to push it along. It only needs a hole where the truth ought to be. This town has always been patient about holes. Somebody would ask after me at the beauty shop. Reva would go quiet and look down at her hands. That little silence is how you say a thing twice. It works better than saying it once, and it can't be argued with. I've watched her do it to other people since. She is better at it than anybody I know. About 10 years back, a woman at the feed store put a hand on my arm. "Bless your heart," she said. "Not everybody can do it." I said thank you. I've thought about that thank you ever since. The first Tuesday in April. Reva came to the shop. Reva doesn't come to the shop. Reva sends people. She stood in the bay door in a lavender jacket, holding her purse with both hands the way you'd hold a hymnal. "That smell," she said. "Brake cleaner. I don't know how you stand it all day." I set the impact gun down. "What do you need?" "The reunion committee called me." "Called you?" "They couldn't find your address, honey." She was lying, and we both knew it. My address is painted on the sign out front right under my daddy's name. "I told them you probably wouldn't want to come," she said. "I told them it might be hard on you." My stomach dropped. Not because of the reunion. Because of that one word. Probably. 25th, she said. It ran 3 years late. Nobody could ever settle on a weekend. I know when it is. Memorial Day. At the gym. They've got a speaker and everything. I've got a shop. That's what I told them. She smiled. I said, "Corinne's got that shop." She laid a card on my toolbox. Cream-colored, gold letters. Then she stopped in the doorway. "They still ask me, you know," she said. about what happened to you over there. Nothing happened over there. Well, she patted the doorframe twice. That's about what I tell them. Her car pulled out slow, the way she does everything. I stood in the bay a while, with the compressor cycling behind me. Then I picked up the card. I didn't throw it away. That surprised me more than anything she'd said. That night I sat in my daddy's office and looked at it. Dinner at 6, program at 7:30, bring a dish if you're able. I'd skipped the 10th. I'd skipped the 20th. Both times I had a good reason, and the reason was always the shop. The shop was never the reason. 3 days later, Hollis Deeb opened the wrong drawer in my shop. Hollis is 72. He ran the parts counter at the Ford place for 30 years until it shut down. Now he comes by twice a week to drink my coffee and tell me what I'm doing wrong. You got a 3/8 deep well, bottom drawer on the left. He opened the one on the right instead. I heard it stop. A drawer makes a little catch when a hand quits pushing. Inside on a folded shop rag was a flag, folded into a triangle, blue side out. Hollis looked at it for about 2 seconds. Then he shut the drawer easy, like a man backing out of a room he had no business in. Other side, you said. Other side. He found his socket. He poured his coffee. He talked about the price of beef and the new stoplight on Chandler Street. He didn't ask. That's why I liked him. Hollis has known me since I was small enough to sit on his parts counter. He's never asked me a question he hadn't already chewed on for a week. That morning he stayed and cleaned a socket that didn't need cleaning. Then he put his hat on and went home an hour early. I should have understood something right then, and I didn't. I thought he was being polite about a drawer. Polite had nothing to do with it. All he was doing that morning was arithmetic. By the middle of April, my shop gets hot before 10 in the morning. The air smells like rubber and cut grass off the ball field behind us. I keep a box fan in the bay door and sweet tea in the parts fridge. Both are lies I tell myself about the summer coming. That week, a girl named Dana Witt brought in a Corolla with a shutter in the front end. She's maybe 30. Her mother and Riva sing in the same choir. Miss Corinne, can I ask you something? You can ask. Were you scared over there? I pulled the wheel and set it down. Who told you I was over there? My mama. Your mama says a lot. She laughed. Then she quit laughing because isn't. That's when I understood how far it had traveled. It wasn't a rumor anymore. It was a thing young people knew about me the way you know a bridge is out. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was tired. A rumor gets old and turns into background noise. Nobody in Ridgely woke up thinking about Corinne Tate and the army. It was just the shape I had in people's heads. A dent stops being damage after a while and becomes the car. That's what had happened to me, slow, across 19 years. And I had helped put every bit of it there. That's the part I could never set down anywhere. Every time somebody was gentle with me about it, I let them be. The next week I lost a job. Dale Mercer brought in a 3/4 ton with a bad wheel bearing. He came back an hour later and said he'd changed his mind. No offense, Miss Corinne. None taken. It's just, my wife heard. He stopped himself. He looked at the floor. It's a long drive to Selma, is all. It is. He took his truck to Selma. I'll be honest about this part. It wasn't the money. I've had lean years. It was standing in an empty bay at 10:30 in the morning, listening to a truck I could have fixed drive off toward another county. That Saturday, the Legion Post had its pancake breakfast. I went for the sausage. That's the only reason anybody goes. The Legion Post is a cinder block building with a flagpole out front. They've served that breakfast on the last Saturday in April since before I was born. Half the county comes through in about 2 hours. You pay at a card table by the door. Somebody's grandmother hands you a plate and tells you to eat more. The coffee is bad on purpose, I think. Nobody has ever complained about it in my lifetime. It's that kind of a morning around here. Riva was working the coffee urn like she'd been elected to it. I was 2 people back in line when I heard her. And she came home in the middle of it, poor thing. She never talks about it. Bless her, somebody said. I've never pushed her on it, Riva said. Some things a person just can't carry. I got my plate. I sat with Hollis by the flagpole door. I ate every bite because leaving would have been a statement, and I don't make statements. Hollis buttered a biscuit. You hear all that? I heard it. You want to say anything? No. All right. He ate his biscuit. Then he said one more thing. For the file, I never believed a word of it. The following Sunday, the church bulletin came out with the Memorial Day program folded inside. Ridgely honors its veterans every year. They print the names in a column down the middle with the branch beside each one. I'd been in that column since the year I came home. That column is a small thing, and it is not a small thing. It runs down the middle of the bulletin on the last Sunday in May. Ridgely has put a name on that page after every war it's sent people to. Folks around here keep the bulletins for years. My daddy kept his in a cigar box in the office. They go back to the year he came home from his own war. I found that box the week after we buried him. I've never had the heart to move it off that shelf. It's still sitting there, behind the old invoices. Some things you just leave where a man put them. I went down it twice. My name wasn't on it. Monday morning I called Bettina Sharp. She types that program in the church office every May. Miss Corinne, how are you, sugar? I'm fine. I'm looking at the bulletin. There was a pause. I could hear a copier running behind her. We had to shorten the column this year, she said. You added 2 names. Another pause. It was brought to our attention that there might be a question. A question about what? About eligibility, honey. That's all it was. Nobody meant a thing by it. Brought to your attention by who? I'd rather not. Bettina. By your mother. Stepmother. By Riva, she said. Silence. She told the auxiliary you'd never actually gone, Bettina said. She said the last thing you'd want is folks asking you questions you can't answer. That was kind of her. Corinne? No. It was very kind. I hung up before I could turn into somebody I'd have to apologize to on Sunday. Here's the part that got me. My daddy's name is at the bottom of that column. Wade Tate Army, 1968 to 1971. He's been on it every year since he passed. For 15 years, his name and mine sat 1 line apart on a piece of paper that gets folded into 800 church bulletins. Now it was just his. I want to be careful here, because this could sound bigger than it was. Nobody took a thing away from me that morning. A woman in a church office typed a list and left off 1 line. That's all it amounts to on paper. But a list like that is where a town writes down who you were. It's the only place most of us ever get written down at all. And I had just been taken off of it quietly by my own family. I stood in the bay and let that sit on me a while. Then I went back to work because the bearing wasn't going to press itself. My eyes stung standing there in the bay with a wheel bearing pressed halfway. I was ashamed of that. I've been sadder about bigger things and stayed dry. Riva called me Tuesday night. She wanted me to know she'd heard. I had nothing to do with it, she said. All right. I think it's small of them. All right. You've always been so hard to help, Corinne. I looked up at the ceiling of my daddy's office and counted the water stains. Riva, do you remember what I told you the week I got home? You didn't tell me anything. That's the whole trouble. And she was right. That's the piece I couldn't argue with. I never told her 1 word. Hollis came by Wednesday. He didn't drink his coffee. They took your name off the column. They did. You going to let that stand? It's a piece of paper, Hollis. So's a deed. I laughed. He didn't. He set his cup down on my fender, which he knows better than to do. Corinne, what year was it you came home? I wiped my hands. Why, because Riva tells 1 year. And I was standing on Chandler Street the day you got off that bus. It wasn't that year. Silence. Hollis. I'm not asking you to tell me anything, he said. I'm asking what year. I told him the year. He wrote it on the back of a parts receipt and put it in his shirt pocket. Then he picked his cup back up. All right, he said. That's all I wanted. Friday night, I was counting out the drawer when Hollis knocked on the glass. He had a manila folder under his arm. I'm not here for coffee. I can see that. He set the folder on the counter. He didn't open it. I went down to the county paper, he said. They keep it all on that microfilm machine in the basement. Hollis. I looked at the week you came home. He tapped the folder twice. There's nothing in there about you. Not one line. I know. But there's a funeral notice out of Calvert County. Same week. The bay was dark behind me. I could hear the parts fridge humming. A boy, 21 years old, Hollis said. And I've got no earthly reason to put those two things together. He pushed the folder an inch toward me. Except I've known you since you were in pigtails, and you keep a folded flag in a toolbox drawer. I sat down on the stool by the counter. I hadn't sat down all day. Shut the door, I said. He shut it. My unit had a flight out on a Thursday, I said. 3 days before that, a captain pulled me into an office. He told me I was off the manifest. Off it. He said a detail had come down that had to be filled, and my name came up. What detail? Escort. He didn't say anything. They bring them home, I said. Somebody goes with them. The whole way. That's the job. Whose boy was it? Wesley Pruitt. Corporal. Calvert County, right here in this state. 40 miles south of us. 40 miles south of us. Hollis sat down on the tire stack. He didn't ask another question for a while. What's it like? He finally said. Quiet. You sit in the seat nearest the cargo hold. The captain tells the plane you're aboard. Everybody stays seated until you've gone off first. Every leg. Every leg. How long? 9 days. Dover to Atlanta. Atlanta to a funeral home in Calvert County. They hand you a folder and about 4 hours of instruction, I said. Most of it is about your hands and where you stand. That's the training. The rest, you figure out in a hangar at 2 a.m. What do you do the whole time? You stay where you can see him. That's the whole job, start to finish. That doesn't sound like 9 days of work. It's the hardest thing anybody ever asked me to. I remember the ramp at Atlanta more than any of the rest. It was February. Rain came sideways across the concrete. 6 men I'd never met stood out in it without a coat between them. They were a detail from a post up the road. They'd been standing out there since before we landed. Not one of them knew that boy from anybody. They came out in the rain for a stranger on a Tuesday. I've thought about those 6 men more than almost anything in my life. Whenever somebody tells me this country has gone to pieces, I think about them. I don't ever say that part out loud. I just think it and let the conversation go on. I stayed at the funeral home both nights, I said. Nobody ordered me to. It didn't feel right to leave him in a strange building. The funeral home on Bell Street had a side room with a window unit. It ran all night and rattled every time it cycled. I sat in a folding chair with my cover on my knee. I watched the parking lot empty out under one orange light. Around midnight, the man who owned the place brought me a cup of coffee. He set it on the table and never said a word about it. That's how most of the kindness in this world gets handed out. Somebody sets a cup down and walks off before you can thank them. I didn't sleep on either one of those nights. I wasn't tired, which I have never been able to explain. Hollis took his glasses off. The second night, his daddy came in about 2 a.m, I said. He sat down in the chair beside me. He didn't say much. What'd he say? He asked me my name. And? I told him. I don't believe he heard it. He wasn't hearing anything that week. Hollis set his glasses on the counter. At the church, his mother came down the steps. I said. She put a flag in my hands. She folded my fingers over it. She said thank you for staying. And then I had 11 days of leave and no unit to go back to. They were already gone. And this town saw you on Chandler Street. This town saw me on Chandler Street. He rubbed his face with both hands. Why in the world didn't you say something? I've had 19 years to build a good answer. I still don't have one that holds all the way up. The first time I tried, I got about 4 words in. To who? To my daddy, standing right where you are. And after he passed, by then, the story had a shape. That's not a reason. It wasn't mine to tell Hollis. It was theirs. That boy had a mother. Silence. So you let Riva. I let Riva. He took a little notebook out of his shirt pocket. Spiral on the top, the kind that fits behind a pen. Spell that last name for me. Hollis. Spell it. I spelled it. He wrote it down. He wrote down the county. He wrote down the year. Then he put the notebook away and picked up his hat. What are you going to do with that? Probably nothing. He was at the door before he turned back around. Corinne, is there anything with your name on it, anywhere? No, no paperwork, no citation, nothing in a file drawer. Nothing, I said. There's no award for it. There's no photograph. It isn't the kind of thing anybody writes down. He stood there holding his hat. Then what's left of it? Nothing's left of it. That's the whole point of the job. He nodded once the way a man checks a torque spec against a chart. Then he left. The next 2 weeks were the quietest of my life, which should have been a warning. Hollis came by twice. He drank his coffee. He talked about beef. I kept the shop open every day of those 2 weeks. I got more work done than I had all spring. Brakes on the church van out on Highway 9, a water pump on a hay truck that should have been scrapped. I ate supper standing at the parts counter every single night. If you want to know what a person is avoiding, watch what they're suddenly good at. Hollis watched me for 2 weeks and said nothing about it. He'd top off his coffee and go on home. That's a kind of patience I have never had. The 3rd week of May, Bettina called again. The auxiliary voted to keep the column the way it is. All right. I told them I've known you since kindergarten. Thank you, Bettina. It didn't matter what I told them. Then Margot Pike called me. Margot has run every reunion since the 10th. Corinne Tate, are you coming or not? I hadn't planned on it. Your mother said you'd say that. Stepmother. She said you get nervous in crowds. I looked out at the empty bay. Put me down as a maybe, Margot. I've had you down as a maybe since March. The Thursday before Memorial Day, Hollis came in at 7 in the morning. He's never done that. The Legion lost its speaker, he said. Fella from Montgomery had a stroke Sunday. He's all right, but he isn't speaking. I'm sorry to hear it. So they're doing the whole thing in one shot. Rain's coming, so they moved it indoors. The reunion's got the gym anyway. Dinner, then the veterans column, then the speaker. That'll be a room. 400, they're saying. He poured his coffee. He took his time with it. They found somebody else. They did. Who? Retired Command Sergeant Major out of Calvert County, he said. Name of Pruitt. The bay went very far away for a second. Hollis. I made one phone call, he said. I asked their post for a speaker. I did not give them your name. I did not say one word about you. Does he know I'll be there? Nobody knows you'll be there, including you. Silence. I'm not going, I said. He rinsed his cup out in my sink, which he has never once done. That's your business, he said. But that man's been standing up in rooms for 19 years. I'd guess he isn't doing it for free chicken. Saturday, I opened the bottom drawer and looked at that flag a long while. Then I shut it. Sunday, I did the same thing. Sunday evening, Riva called. I hear you're not coming tomorrow. Word travels. I think that's wise, honey. A pause. There's going to be a lot of service talk. I'd hate for you to have to sit through it. Would you? You know how you get. How do I get Riva? Don't be ugly with me. I have protected you for 20 years. And there it was, out loud for the first time. Protected. I said goodnight. I sat in my daddy's office until the streetlight came on outside the glass. I thought about my father, sitting in that chair with the ledger open. He never once asked me what happened over there. I've come to believe he was waiting on me to be able to say it. He ran out of time before I ever got there. That's a thing you don't get to go back and fix. You just carry it around and take it out at night sometimes. Then I went out into the shop. I opened the bottom drawer. I set that flag on the seat of my truck. I still told myself I wasn't going. Memorial Day came in hot and went out wet. A storm crossed the county at 4 in the afternoon and took 10 degrees with it. By 6, the parking lot was steaming. The air had that scrubbed smell it gets after hard rain down here. I locked the shop at 5. I didn't change clothes. I want that on the table. I went in my work shirt, with my name stitched on the patch. I put my daddy's coat over it. Dark wool too heavy for May. The storm had made it cool enough to get away with. The flag rode on the seat beside me, wrapped in a clean shop rag. I told myself I was going for the chicken. The gym smelled like floor wax and steam trays. Somebody had strung the banner between the 2 basketball goals and it sagged in the middle. Round tables down front for the class, long tables along the walls for the town, folding chairs across the whole floor. I hadn't stood in that gym since the spring I graduated. It smelled exactly the same, which I did not enjoy at all. The scoreboard was new, and the floor had been refinished twice. The stage at the far end still had that same brown curtain. Somebody had gotten an iron to it for the occasion. There were photographs taped to a folding board by the door. I didn't walk over there to look at them. I knew which ones would be up there. I sat in the back third seat from the door with my coat on. Riva was at the head table in navy blue with a corsage. People came by. They always do. "Miss Corinne, I didn't think you'd come. Miss Corinne, how's that shop?" I said fine. I said fine about 9 times. That's the thing about a reunion in a town you never left. Nobody has to catch you up on anything. They already know what you drive and where you sit on Sunday. They think they know the one big thing about you, too. So they ask about the shop instead, and you say fine. Everybody gets to keep the arrangement for one more evening. I've done it 1,000 times and never once minded. That night, I minded it more than usual. I couldn't have told you why, yet. Bettina found me before they served. She squeezed my arm and didn't say a word. It was the kindest thing anybody did all night. At 7:30, they did the invocation. Then the auxiliary did the column. Bettina said the names into the microphone. 22 of them alphabetical, with the branch after each one. Some of them were dead. Most of them were sitting right there. She said my daddy's name. Wade Tate. Army. She got to the T's and went straight on past me because my name wasn't there to say. I looked at my hands. Somebody 2 tables up leaned over to Riva and said something. Riva shook her head slow, the way people do about a sad thing. Then the principal took the microphone. "Folks, our speaker came a long way on short notice." The side door opened. He was a big man gone thick through the middle. Gray suit, no tie. He walked like his knees hurt, and he'd decided not to let it show. "Retired Command Sergeant Major Harlan Pruitt," the principal said. "Calvert County." Everything in me went cold and still. He set a folded paper napkin on the podium. Then a pair of glasses he never put on. Then he took hold of both sides of the stand. He didn't say anything for a good while. That's the part I keep coming back to. "I'm not much of a speaker," he said. "I'm going to tell you about my son." His name was Wesley Dean Pruitt. He was 21. He held the napkin the whole time and never once used it. He worked at the co-op. He was a bad singer and a good shot. He'd have been 40 this year. Nobody moved. I'm not going to talk about how he died. That's not what tonight is. I want to talk about the 9 days after. When they bring your child home, the army sends somebody with him, he said. One soldier. That soldier does not leave him. Not on the plane, not on the ramp, not at the funeral home. They call it escort duty. Most folks have never heard of it. I hadn't, and I'd been in 30 years. He said that part slowly, like it still bothered him. Then he looked out at the whole room instead of the front tables. He tapped the side of his own head. Twice. Everything I've got about that woman is in here, he said. There's no paperwork on it. I went looking. I called every office they gave me a number for. No citation, no award, no photograph. Not a line in a newspaper. Not one page anywhere in this world with her name on it. Somebody coughed. The air handler kicked on over our heads. You'd think a thing like that would leave a mark somewhere. It doesn't. It's built not to. A citation has to be witnessed, written up, then signed by somebody with authority. Nobody was standing in that hangar with a pen in his hand. The people who saw it were a widow and a father who wasn't in his right mind, and a funeral director on Bell Street who has since passed. So for 19 years, I've been the only thing left of it. He let go of the stand. I've asked this in Anniston. I've asked it in Dothan. I asked it at a church supper in Wetumpka last fall. February the 9th, he said. Dover Air Force Base, Delaware. My boy came off that plane and there was a soldier 3 steps behind him. She rode with him to Atlanta. She rode with him to Calvert County. She stood 2 nights in a funeral home on Bell Street so he wouldn't be by himself in a strange building. Nobody ordered that. There's no order for that. The second night I came in about 2 in the morning. I sat down beside her. I couldn't hold a thought in my head that week. I asked her name. She gave it to me one time. 3 stripes on her sleeve. That's all I ever had, and I've said it to myself every night since so I wouldn't lose it. He looked out at the room. Sergeant Corinne Tate. I'd like to tell you the room gasped. It went the other way. 400 people went so quiet I could hear the ice settle in the tea pitchers. Somebody at the head table said my name out loud, like a question. Riva turned around in her chair. I've had 19 years to imagine her face. I got it wrong every single time. There was no anger in it. There was nothing in it at all, the way a house looks with the power out. My wife put a flag in that woman's hands on the church steps, he said. My wife passed 9 years ago this June. She asked after her every year she had left. I don't know where she went. I don't know if she's living. He picked the napkin up off the podium and folded it in half. But if she's in this room tonight, I'd like her to stand up. Nobody moved. I looked at the door. 11 steps. I'd counted them on the way in, the way you do. Hollis Deeb was sitting 1 seat over. He didn't look at me. He didn't say a word. He set his coffee cup down on the chair between us, very soft, like a man laying down a tool he's finished with. I thought about a woman on a set of church steps, folding my fingers over a flag. I stood up. 400 heads turned. I have never in my life been so aware of a work shirt. He looked at me a long moment. Then he came down off that stage. He didn't hurry. Nobody said a word while he crossed the floor. He stopped in front of me and put his hand out. I shook it. Ma'am, he said. Sergeant Major. You stayed? Yes, sir. Both nights. Yes, sir. He held onto my hand. His chin went, and he let it go. Thank you, he said. That's the whole speech. I had a page and a half more. I'm not going to use it. Then he took my hand in both of his and folded them shut around it. Same as his wife did on those steps 19 years before. I don't believe he knew he was doing it. Somebody in the back started clapping. The whole gym came up out of those chairs. I didn't cry. I want to be honest about that too. I stood there with my hand inside a stranger's hands and felt something I don't have a good word for. Not pride, something quieter, like a door being unlocked from the other side. Riva left before the applause stopped. I watched her go. She carried her purse in both hands the way you'd hold a hymnal, and she went out the side door into the wet parking lot. I felt sorry for her. That surprised me more than anything else that night. I never said a word to her about any of it. Not that night, not since. I didn't have to. The truth did all of it. People kept coming up to me for about an hour after that. Some of them apologized, and I couldn't figure out how to turn that down. A man I sat behind in 10th grade shook my hand twice. He got my name wrong both times, and I let him. Margot Pike cried harder than I did, which was not difficult. Bettina didn't say one word to me at all. She just stood beside me with her hand on my back the whole time. That's the one I still think about. They printed the program again the next spring. Bettina typed my name in herself and didn't ask a soul. Riva stopped getting asked to work the coffee urn. Nobody was cruel about it. This town isn't cruel. It just goes quiet on you. And quiet is worse. She still goes to that church. I still see her on Sundays. We say good morning. People have asked me whether I forgave her for it. That word has never sat right with me somehow. What happened is simpler than forgiving, and it's colder. The story finally had a second version in it. A town can only carry one version of a person at a time. Riva didn't lose an argument in that gym. She lost the only thing she'd ever really had. She was the woman who explained me, and after that night, she wasn't. By 9:30, the gym was empty. The caterers broke down the steam trays. 2 men from the Legion stacked the round tables against the wall. Somebody swept. I went out to my truck and got the flag. Then I came back in. I stood in the middle of that floor under the sagging banner with my daddy's coat over my work shirt and that triangle in both hands. I didn't cry then either. I stood there dry-eyed in a high school gym and let it be true. Then the janitor cut half the lights and I went home. That was 3 years ago. The flag isn't in the toolbox anymore. It hangs on the wall over my counter in a case with nothing beside it. There's nothing to put beside it. That was always the point. People ask about it now. I tell them. It took me 19 years to be able to, and now it takes about as long as an oil change. I've learned how to tell it plain and short. I say his name first because it's his story before it's mine. Then I tell them what the job was called. Most people have never heard of escort duty either. That's the part that gets them every single time. A man from Tuscaloosa stood at my counter last fall and cried about it. He'd had a brother come home that way in 1969. He never knew there'd been anybody with him. Harlan Pruitt comes through twice a year. He gets his oil changed whether he needs it or not. He sits in the plastic chair by the fan. He tells me about Wesley's singing. I let the engine idle longer than it needs to. Here's what I know now. And it took me far too long to learn it. Being quiet isn't the same as being humble. I thought I was protecting something. I was leaving an empty chair and somebody else sat down in it and told my story for me. The truest thing I ever did left nothing behind but a man's memory. It happened anyway. But having somebody say it out loud turned out to be a mercy I didn't know I'd been waiting on. If this one meant something to you, share it with somebody who's been letting a wrong story stand about them. And if you'd like to sit with me for another, subscribe and stay with me.